What's up, friends? Welcome to Web3 Academy, a place for entrepreneurs, creators, and marketers to explore and learn how to use Web3 to transform business models and create thriving communities. Enjoy this next episode.
GM, what's up, friends? Welcome to Web3 Academy. It is the weekly spotlight where we bring on somebody that's crushing it and doing big things in Web3. And today we are super excited to have with us Lacey, I'm not exactly sure how to say your last name. I think it's Kaelani. Is that correct?
Yep.
Got it. Lacey Kaelani is with us. And as always, co-host Kai is on the podcast too. What's up, Kai?
What's up, friends? Good to be here.
So little intro on Lacey before we get her to jump in here. Lacey's a two-time startup founder with a background in HR tech. Her last startup was venture-backed and placed thousands of jobs. Then she sold it. And now she's working on Metaintro, which is what we're here to talk about today. Metaintro is the professional resume for Web3. And if you're not exactly sure what that means, we're going to dive into that because it's pretty innovative. Ditch the old PDF resume. We got something new coming for you in Web3 that's really exciting. And long-term, really the goal for Metaintro is to reduce the time to hire for job seekers and employers. And they're also backed by Near and Aave, so some big backers behind the project. Really exciting. And earlier, before jumping on the podcast, I jumped into their Discord, which is one of the most active Discords to find a job in Web3. So if you're not there and you're looking for a job, you're definitely going to want to hear more about that Discord. And a couple of random facts about Lacey, because we always love to have fun on the show. She's also a dog mom and a semi-pro soccer player on the side while running startups. I don't know how you have all the time. Lacey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. That entry blurb makes it all sound great. And I have to remember to turn off my Discord. Otherwise you're going to hear the pings like nonstop throughout this chat, which would be which actually gets really annoying. So, well, it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So let's rewind before Metaintro. What did you do before Metaintro? Give us a little bit of the background story of Lacey Kaelani.
Yeah. So my last startup, like you said, was an HR marketplace in the media and entertainment space. Venture back, grew to thousands of users, placed hundreds of jobs. It was a wonderful ride. And eventually we made the decision to sell. And around that time, I read one of Matt Ball's first essays on the metaverse. And I don't know if you've had the chance to read those. Excellent collection of essays. Definitely recommend if you have the time. And after reading it, I thought, this guy's crazy. What is he talking about? And also at that time, I had never seen Ready Player One. Like I had no context. And after reading, I found myself at Sotheby's on Decentraland, at a party on Roblox, buying my first NFT, downloaded my, my MetaMask wallet. And along the way got me thinking a lot about the future of work and what work can look like in the next 10, 20 years. And something that I was never able to solve for in my last startup was reducing the time to hire. That's truly the pain point in the hiring process. All of these Web2 companies are trying to solve for filling the top of the funnel with applicants, which is great. But that doesn't solve the issue. The issue is how quickly can we get a qualified candidate into the role and working so that the project can continue to build and excel. And so after that really busy weekend of dabbling in Web3 products, I thought, well, what would happen if credentials lived on chain? What could that look like? And what could that do to the future of work? And that was kind of the genesis of Metaintro.
Well, I'm excited to hear about what it will mean to put credentials on chain, to be honest. So we're going to dive into that, but let's sort of hold on to that thought for just a second. I'm just curious, when you first learned about Web3 and you read, I guess it was Matthew Ball, right? He's got a book coming out, I think this summer on Metaverse as well.
Nice.
But when you first read that, what was the thing that excited you or like got you going like, oh, wow, this is like game changer. This is going to be huge. Anything in particular?
Yeah. Well, it was actually a podcast that I'd listened to right after I had read those essays, because I wanted to learn more. And he did this podcast back in, I want to say late 2020, and it was about IP and the metaverse and how that's going to change the entertainment landscape and the relationship it has with its audience. And that at the time, because I was building in the media and entertainment space, was super, super interesting to me. And if you listen to him, he's just so, well refined, and everything he says is just, it's like God's words, Web3. And so that's what really got me interested and hooked into the Web3 space. Behind that, I have been in the crypto space for about 5 years, just as like a normie trader, but nothing beyond that. And I didn't really understand the connection in the beginning between crypto and the metaverse and Web3 and NFTs and blockchain. Like, that still was very foreign to me. Just investing in crypto was kind of something all of my friends did. So all back to probably that podcast and that collection of essays was really the genesis of it.
Interesting.
And do you remember like a line or anything specific from that podcast or that essay that really cued your interest?
I don't. I wish I did. I wish I could quote it. I don't. I should go back and read it. But there's so many good things to be reading, to be listening to nowadays.
Totally.
I will read his book when it comes out.
For sure. And I think a lot of people, when they hear about blockchain, they hear about Web3, they're like, oh, we should put everything on the blockchain, right? There was like the ICO boom from 2017. And so you're saying, okay, well, let's put our resumes essentially on the blockchain, which is something I've been thinking about for a long time. And I actually think has a lot of utility in it and could be really cool. I'm interested to hear can you just talk about how Web3 can sort of change the way that we're hiring, and what is the utility of a blockchain in terms of, a resume or whatever you want to call it? Like, how are you thinking about that?
Yeah. So in the hiring process today, when I'm talking about reducing the time to hire, the issues as to why the hiring time takes so long is validation. That can be validation of work, education, references, work visas, and skills. And if those credentials lived on chain, as a hiring manager, I wouldn't have to go through the traditional vetting process. I wouldn't have to call your previous employer. I wouldn't have to, make sure that work visa is A-okay. I could trust it because it lives on chain. That's the long-term thinking. Obviously, we have a long ways to go in terms of that being a scalable business and way of doing things amongst everybody in the Web3 ecosystem. But the genesis idea of it is, well, if credentials live on chain, we don't have to spend time validating, and that can reduce that time to hire.
So you mean like in terms of, let's say, I don't know, you complete some course or whatever, and you get a credential, it becomes like an NFT and that's held in your wallet. And so it's like very easy to validate that. What about things of like, I don't know, you mentioned proof of skill, and you mentioned proof of, what were some of the other things? Proof of work. I get proof of education, like a diploma, just easy to put that on the blockchain. What about the other things that when we're hiring, we're looking like, can you do these skills, or have you done this in the past? Like, how does that work on chain?
Yeah, haven't completely solved for that yet. Skills, as you could probably imagine, are subjective a lot of the time. And the expertise or that level of skill can range significantly. And again, it's subjective. And so a lot of our thinking in the background is, as we're building our roadmap, we're like, okay, the lowest hanging fruits to build first are the proof of education, proof of work, having a previous employer validate that you worked from X date to X date doing X. Super easy. But how do we eventually put skills on chain? And then on top of it, skills are continuously updated. You grow as an individual, as a job seeker. And how do we account for that? Let's say when the first iteration of your skill, that proof of skill lives on chain, whether that's like an assessment test or I don't know, a link to your GitHub and it's rated, there's a few different ways it could work. But then what happens when you level up? How do you go back to that NFT badge, if you will, and update it? I mean, you could. I mean, that's probably a pretty simple step, but the subjectiveness of it is the big question mark we have with it right now. And who's to say that that skill, you're proficient in that skill? So we're thinking about it, but it's something that needs to be solved for, because if you can find the secret sauce with that, you can have like, that's a great company if you can figure out how to do that. So.
I mean, you could kind of see it of like, it's almost like LinkedIn, but all of the things you have on your resume there are actually verified and verified through the blockchain, almost like how on Twitter, you can verify someone's profile picture, right? And you can do that basically through LinkedIn with, credentials being on the blockchain. So that makes sense. The other way I thought about this, and I don't know if this applies to all jobs, but you could almost do like proof of performance with the blockchain, in the sense of like, let's say you're trying to get a job as a investment person or a trader or something. They can literally just go to your wallet and look and be like, oh, you bought a Bored Ape Yacht Club at this and you sold it for this. Like, you were profitable. And you can do this for every trade because it's all open and transparent. So like, I completely get it in terms of a trader or a research analyst or something for your track record. I wonder how we can do that for other skills that are not to do with trading. I don't know if you have any like ideas or things that you can paint a picture for us. If not, that's okay. But I kind of want to see the 10 years ahead. How's this going to end up looking?
Yeah, that's a good point. There's definite, and that varies by role, right? Like for an analyst or anybody in finance, there are milestone markers within your portfolio that can equal X in terms of expertise. But what about like a community mod? What about a product or a project manager? I guess completion of those products or that project, but that still doesn't tell a hiring manager that that person was, super skilled or okay job or did a really shitty job. Whatever.
That's the classic rating right there. That's performance review 101.
Yeah. And then also on top of it, like, so you have community, you have product management, and then what? Like, what skills, all of the skills that go into making those roles are also all super subjective. Everybody's resume looks different and everybody comes to a different conclusion as to like, these skills make me a community moderator, make me a product or project manager. So big question marks to solve for. Doesn't answer your question. Not quite sure.
It's okay. I'm just
working on it.
So is the path to somehow create a standard for measuring those skills, or is it more to rely on in that area to still rely on the hirer or the hiring manager or the hiring employer to just validate those? So it'll be on chain, but it'll be on chain with the caveat that like this was rated out of their own rating system, right?
Yeah, kind of like an Uber system in a way. Like imagine if hiring managers, who did the assessment test with candidates were able to upload it on the back end, and that all went into some sort of rating system that went on an individual's profile. It's a big, I know that it doesn't sound like it, but that's a big ask for hiring managers to make that a standard, and to make sure that, what if there's biases that go into that assessment? What if that assessment was out of that individual skill set to begin with? Like, there's all these different factors, and I'd want to be careful of placing a rating on somebody's profile that's unfair. But on the other hand, sure, there might be a way to create a standard within the industry. I don't know anybody that's solved for that in Web 2. So there's not quite necessarily like a roadmap for that. But who's to say there might, we're still in the beginning of Web 3, maybe there is. Who knows?
Find out. I want to get into a lot on hiring actually, and a lot about just like the job market in Web3. But maybe before we do, this might be a good time to just tell us about Metaintro a little bit and sort of like what you guys are currently working on. How far along are you? What problems are you currently solving? And sort of just like walk us through that process so far.
Yeah, so Metaintro's professional resume wallet for Web3. It's a multi-chain custodial wallet that holds proof of work, proof of skill, proof of education, TBD on skill, eventually one day skill. Ideally with, replacing the PDF resume. So we're backed by Nir and Aave. We're still at the beginning stages of building our product, but like you said earlier, our community is pretty massive. I call that our MVC, that minimum viable community, to prove out that job seekers in the market actively want Web3 jobs today, and they're willing to use a wallet that will help them take on-chain credentials and help them reduce the time to hire and get hired quickly. Community is big. We post jobs from anyone around the Web3 ecosystem pretty much every 10 minutes across technical and non-technical job opportunities. We also have interview resource section, Web3 education section, and funny memes posted every so often.
Of course, because it's not a Web3 Discord if it doesn't have that. So
I remember, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, go for it. I want to hear what you remember now.
I remember the first meme that somebody made from our community. I woke up in the morning, and that's never happened. Like in my Web2 startup, no one was creating memes for us. No one was like, I guess that's the difference of finding product market fit and not. And I remember waking up and seeing this like hilarious meme about Web3 jobs and Metaintro. And I texted my boyfriend. I was like, I think we have a fan. Oh my God, this is so exciting. What do we do? So that's evolved. And now we have a whole community that makes memes, which is pretty special.
That's amazing. So you have the Discord is where you're posting all the jobs and that. Is there a website as well? Like, are you building on a website, or are you just going to do Metaintro is you're going to build this sort of wallet and that, and without a website for this job posting and job hiring stuff?
Yeah, I don't want to build another labor marketplace. I'll be really frank with you. It takes a lot of capital, a lot of resources. And I think people underestimate the amount of effort that goes into building a labor marketplace. And so second time around, I was like, not doing it. Too expensive. It's going to take a lot of manpower. What about Discord? And Discord, which has costed us $0 to build and scale, has sufficiently served as a job marketplace. And it's really evolved over time to be broken down and easily searchable, and kind of replaces the need for a traditional job board. So I think going forward, unless our community is screaming at us like we need a job site for whatever reason, then we'll bake it into the product roadmap. But not now. Now we're just focused on building the wallet.
How far are you into this wallet? Are you guys like, is it usable yet? Is it soon to be usable? Or like, what's the timelines there on the wallet?
Yeah, soon to be usable. Plan is to have the first very early MVP released to our community sometime early summer. And then of course we'll iterate and eventually release to the general public, maybe end of summer, maybe fall.
Okay. And any idea what kind of features will be available at the first release?
It'll be super basic. So think MetaMask, but resume version. So the features in the beginning, you'll be able to customize, organize different badges and sections, just as you would your normal resume. You'll be able to add basic description, just like you do in your resume, profile pic, add contact information. And that's about it. They'll be super, super vanilla, but the idea behind it is, does it work? Are people going to use it? And do people understand what the product is? And then on the flip side, making sure that employers are going to be using it as well. So on the employer side, the way that it works is, let's say you're going through a native job application, like a board house, and you're going through the basic questions, first and last name, email address, tell us about yourself, and you get to the section where it says upload your PDF resume. Instead, it would say connect with your Metaintro wallet, and making sure that employers are using us, they understand the product. That's going to be like a really big focal point in the beginning.
What does the employer then see? You connect with the wallet and it just remains connected now and they can just look at it anytime? Or is it like take a snapshot of the wallet at that moment? Or how does that work?
That's a good question. I actually haven't thought through that. If they'll have like access indefinitely, or if they'll just get a snapshot. Probably will end up being indefinitely, because oftentimes, unfortunately or fortunately, job posters will post jobs that they're not necessarily ready to hire for at that moment. Maybe they're thinking about hiring that candidate a few months down the line, and that candidate's resume most likely will update in some shape or form, especially as we're beginning to roll out. So most likely indefinitely, but there should be a way, thinking out loud, for that job poster to see who's seen their wallet and maybe revoke or sustain access.
Like disconnect,
kind of
essentially.
Like, yeah, maybe kind of like a doc send, where you can see in the back end who's looked at it, for how long, when, where. Maybe having that information would be helpful to a job seeker. That is a good question to pull in our community.
Here we go. We're building the product right here live on the podcast. I like it. Now, so will this wallet also in the future have the ability to interact just like a MetaMask wallet, where like you could go on Uniswap and buy and trade tokens for whatever reason? Or will it stay as like, this one's just meant for resume type wallet, and it stays as that, and then you have your other wallet for other things?
It'll most likely forever be two separate things. The only reason I'd see any type of crossover is, like, let's say you're an analyst, or maybe better, you're an NFT designer, and you want to showcase your collection in your wallet, which might be a very common use case that we come across. Then we'll have to figure out, how do we bridge the two? But we'll see as we go down the road. Right. These are all great questions.
I was going to say, well, that was one of the things I was trying to figure out, was the interoperability part of it, because the thing I noticed with Web3 is, like, I have a million wallets, and I feel like everyone has a million wallets. So like, what if I'm doing a course and I bought it with a different wallet, and then like my credentials go into that wallet? How does this like integrate?
Totally.
So there's going to have to be some way to sort of, I don't know, share the information from one wallet to another. I don't know how it's going to work.
That is a good question. Do you use one wallet over another, or is there a reason you have a ton of wallets?
So just security reasons. Like, one, I have, kind of a cold wallet that I use to store. I have one that I use to interact with applications. One that I use to interact with NFTs. So I kind of separated out. Just, I don't know if that's the right way to do it. I'm scared.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through the difference of, I know you're not deep into this Web3 business yet, but I think a lot of our listeners have a Web2 business and they want to build a Web3 business. What is it like building? I mean, you've built a Web2 business already, and now you're in the process of building Web3. What are the differences you're finding? What are the challenges? Like, can you walk us through any of that?
My mind quickly goes back to the first VC, or the first couple of VCs I talked to when I had this idea. And the thought process was like, well, let me go and try to raise on an idea, and not knowing as much as I know now about the Web3 space, or more specifically, the hiring space within Web3, which is like even more niche. And the conversations were completely different with a Web3 VC over a traditional Web2 VC. And during that time, I also talked to Web2 VCs, because they're probably looking to expand into Web3 as well. And Web2 VCs, no idea what I was talking about. Lost them. First 5 seconds, they were like, so what is the metaverse? What is Web3? And it was just so interesting, because that beginning exercise for me just taught me a lot about what I need to know and where I need to be an expert in before I can be ready to go out and raise. But in terms of the differences of running a Web2 startup versus a Web3, Web3, you're most likely dealing and receiving funds in crypto. It's a completely different space. Your payroll isn't in Gusto. What do taxes look like? How do you pay employees? What do benefits look like? I wrote this Twitter thread a few weeks ago on the difference of benefits in Web2 versus Web3 for employees. Completely different, and will most likely be the difference between you recruiting top tier talent versus not. That includes like tokenomics, and making sure that the employees get a share of the token if you're releasing a token, etc. NFT access, whitelists, all of that good stuff. Other differences in being Web3. I've found that people are much more friendly in Web3, other founders.
That's nice.
Do you guys notice that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Much more collaborative.
Yeah, yes. I was going to say more open and absolutely accessible.
Yeah. Everybody's super nice. Everybody wants to collab. Everyone wants to kind of help each other out, which is super amazing. I had a lot of startup friends that were Web2 startup friends, but here in Web3, everyone's like, how do we work together? How do we grow each other's communities? How do we share resources? Like for instance, the only reason that I found out about Aave for our first grant was because I was talking to another Web3 startup founder that was like, no, don't go and raise venture. That's not how you do it in Web3. You go and raise a grant first. And I wouldn't have known that unless someone shared that information with me. So people are much more friendly in Web3, which is really nice.
So was your raise was completely in crypto?
Yeah.
Wow. And then you pay completely in crypto as well? Like there is no fiat in here?
No. I feel like I'd be kind of like a fraud if I was dealing a little in fiat, right? And I feel like even if I did it like on low key, someone eventually would find out about it and like, poke me for it. So I converted earlier this year my entire bank account over to crypto.com. So now I have like a debit card that I can pay in fiat, to go get coffee or pay rent and do those types of things, which unfortunately my landlord does not take crypto yet. And then also like paying bills, like how do you pay your startup bills, right? Because I'm trying to think of like products that we use that are Web2, like Discord for Nitro. Do they take crypto? I don't know if they take crypto.
I don't think so.
No.
Canva to make like our digital assets. That's not crypto yet. So it's weird being between the two. And then also talk about like the safety of holding that crypto. That's super scary, like getting that grant money and thinking, what if somebody hacks the account? What if the market dips? Oh my gosh, when I got my first grant, the market dipped and I was like, wait, did they actually send over the grant money? I was like, I think they only sent over half. And then like a few days later, the market just like skyrocketed and it almost doubled my investment. And this is all before I even like put my first like startup transaction on. So there's weird things that there's no like YC startup school for this quite yet. So.
Right. It's funny in Web3, you're basically forced to become like, even if you're just a user or you're an entrepreneur, like you're forced to become an investor, right? Because all of a sudden it's like, well, now I have these tokens because I need them to use it, or because that's what I got my investment in. And you're like, okay, do I sell it into USDC? Do I like keep it? Should I try to time the market? Like these things actually matter. It's like everyone is forced to wear multiple hats. It's kind of interesting. It's actually funny you said that, because the first client that we ever that paid us in crypto, they paid us in like Litecoin for some reason, and we didn't realize that they had paid. And so like the market had gone down, and like 4 days later or whatever it was, we realized, and it was already down like X%. We're like, damn it.
Oh, no.
So yeah, it's such a different, it's so different when you're everything's in crypto.
But now knowing that, how do you deal with clients paying you in crypto? Do you take it out right away or do you convert it? What do you do with?
It's a great question. We have like a percentage that we keep in ETH or we put into ETH, and then we have the other percent that we put into USDC, so it stays stable, because we pay our team in USDC. Well, some of them in USDC, so we just kind of keep it there.
And why do you use ETH over other currencies?
Just bullish on ETH.
It's like, you want the long answer or the short answer?
Yeah. It's like we're bullish on ETH, but also it's less risky than a lot of the other stuff. Like Bitcoin and ETH are kind of like the least of the risky of everything. So that's kind of where we keep it. And we're big fans of where ETH is going and what they're doing. So that's where we've decided to keep a certain percentage of our earnings.
Yeah. Have you thought about taking a percentage of that and investing off of your what word am I thinking of? Off of your balance sheet?
Well, we have some. I mean, we have some that's invested and it's there just kind of long term with profits. And I think it's a good way to play it if you're getting into the space, right? Like if you're building in Web3, you're probably pretty bullish on Web3. So why wouldn't you have some exposure to that, right? That was the way that we saw it anyway.
Yeah. Just trying to figure out, well, for Aave and Near, like they paid in 2 different coins. And it's like, which one do you hold both? I mean, in my case, I'm holding both. But what happens as I get hopefully more grants or more tokens, into the business account? Am I holding all different coins? I guess it just kind of depends on the agreement you have with the company that you're taking funds from.
Right.
It's an interesting new thing you have to think about as an entrepreneur in Web3.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people don't really think about that, right? But it's super important, especially if you're getting paid or have to pay in this. So really interesting.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking what we might need to do is a Web3 startup podcast. And maybe a panel and get you back, Lacey, and then get a couple others as well, and dive deeper into, because this is super interesting. I wasn't even expecting us to go into this conversation today, but it is really interesting, and there's so many people who are curious about this.
Yeah. Well, it's also super applicable if you're freelancing. Like I have a ton of individuals in our Discord that are freelancing and they need to set up their LLC. And somebody, for instance, came to me a few weeks ago and was like, how do I invoice a crypto company? I was like, that's a really good question. So how do I protect myself? Do I put some funds into escrow? Like what, how does it work? And I was like, I will be back with an answer. And so, did some research, and there are a ton of Web3 companies that are popping up that are solving for this problem. And also, like on the low, QuickBooks and Intuit are moving into the crypto space because I see them hiring for Web3 positions. And they're hiring devs, they're hiring analysts, like they're gearing up. But will they be able to win that Web3 market? Who knows? But that's all to say, like, there are these tools that are starting to pop up. It's just like, I think there is kind of like a product hunt for Web3, but like there's no sheet. There's no one telling you use request finance for your invoicing, use a hot and cold wallet. Like there needs to be the ABCs of being a startup founder in Web3, because it's only going to help the community. So if you want to do that podcast.
Definitely. We're going to do it. We're going to do it for sure. If listeners out there, if you guys want it, drop us a line, let us know, we'll make it happen. I'm curious, when you have somebody come to you with a question like that, which is obviously a question that many have, are you guys producing guides and resources to answer this for the masses? How do you communicate and teach all of your community these things?
2 ways. First, we have a newsletter that goes out twice a week. It's more of like an HR newsletter that lists jobs, but there's always a section in there that educates on some topic within the Web3 space. And then I write Twitter threads. I love writing Twitter threads, tagging different products in the community, tagging different influencers who are writing other great threads, and compiling that into one massive thread. And then I'll share that in our community in the like Learn Web3 education section. But, it's tough. Like I could also have a blog on top of the newsletter. Like I could also, there's so many things that you can do. It's just how many hours do you have in a day? What's most impactful? Where are your listeners? Or just write about it on Twitter and write startup idea. Anybody solving for this? I know startup founders, write on it. So, and hope somebody else solves for that problem.
This is the most exciting thing about Web3 is it's this whole new like whole new surface area. And so like someone creates something to solve a problem. And then from that, you're like, oh, but now we got to solve this one and this one and this one. So like more businesses get started as a result of that. And it's just like this never ending chain. And I absolutely love that. It's really cool. This is why you can go down the rabbit hole for forever in this space.
Yeah, you totally could. And there's so many problems too, as like a Web3 startup founder that you incur that like, you need you are willing to be the first paying customer for it. You're like, please, somebody give me a product that can solve for this issue. Like for instance, I don't know how busy your Discord inbox is, but mine is slammed, like 50, deep every morning when I wake up, and everybody has a question. Everybody wants to say hello. Everybody wants to tell me the status on their interview process, which is amazing. But I don't have a CRM for my Discord. Like there's not a HubSpot and I can't filter. I can't archive. I can't move things. And like, I went to Twitter. I was like, who's building like something that solves for this issue? It is an actual problem for teams that are moving their customer service onto Discord. So if anybody's listening and is building a Discord CRM, please send it my way. I will pay money for it. So.
There you go. I love that. So let's shift gears a little bit into the whole hiring market and the job market in Web3. Can you sort of zoom out for a sec and just give us the outlook? What are you seeing in Web3 trend-wise? I'm going to assume everyone is hiring in Web3. Are there lots of people looking for jobs in Web3? Like, what are you seeing just since you're kind of the high level view overlooking your Discord channel where everyone is?
Yeah. So I think number one biggest is everybody's hiring a developer. Everybody and their mom needs a developer. Solidity, Rust, Golang. If I see one more Golang job and can't fill it, it's going to break my heart. Front end, back end, full stack, QA, all of those senior level jobs, everybody needs to hire for. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of junior level positions, which makes it really tough for developers who are coming into the space and wanting to make that transition, but can't quite make it because nobody has a junior level position open. We do have a junior dev jobs channel in our Discord, but it's not as active as the normal dev jobs channel. So when I see that happening, I'll push people towards some of my other favorite sites, like Learn Web3, Crypto Zombies. Build Space is another great one. So pushing them towards resources and telling them to participate in hackathons, do some bounties, do some bug bounties, just get some more stuff on your resume so you can feel comfortable applying to those more senior level positions. From there, everybody's hiring like a project manager. That's a hot job in the space. I'm thinking through the channels that are super busy right now. Analysts in finance. Everyone's hiring an analyst. Everyone's hiring an accountant. The legal side of Web3 is completely taking off. I'd say over the past 90 days, the amount of like counsel jobs or paralegal jobs that I've seen pop up in this space, 10x at least. So if you're a lawyer looking to move into the Web3 space, like now is the time. Everybody is hiring a lawyer or in-house counsel. Underneath that, marketing, is more obvious, like social media, partnership management, and then community jobs. Everyone wants to be a community job or a community moderator. That's definitely like a hot position right now, but not everyone's hiring for one, or they only need one on their team. And so whenever I see people coming into the community, they want to be a Discord mod or a Telegram mod. I definitely encourage them to open up their resume to social media manager or partnership manager or an ambassador, just to kind of have more places to send their resume, because community jobs are hot. Like you can't wait on them. If you save that job to the weekend to apply, you're not going to get it. They're going to have 500 applications to go through. So, and then lastly, underneath that, interns. I have a ton of interns in my Discord, like in college, right out of college, looking for that first like Web3 opportunity. But similar to junior dev jobs, internships are slim in the Web3 space. And they're really with like I call them the legacy Web3 companies like Coinbase, OpenSea, Kraken, those bigger companies that have been around for like a year plus, 2 years plus. And so they're hiring interns, but it's tough to get an internship in the space as well.
And other than the dev side of things, because I know that we just don't have enough devs in Web3, are the other, so it sounds like there's a lot of demand for these jobs. Is there enough supply yet? Like, what about these like law and lawyer jobs? Like, are we getting a lot of lawyers moving into Web3, or is it scarce?
I think it's pretty scarce. And I think the issue is lawyers don't know that there's so many job openings in the Web3 space quite yet. And then also the barrier to entry is what constitutes a Web3 lawyer. Obviously, like crypto knowledge, but is a year enough in the space to like go after a job? Like, what are those required skill sets? I see some of the requirements for these job opportunities. Sometimes I'm like, you're nuts. You're never gonna hire anybody. And sometimes I'll tell job seekers or employers that are coming into my Discord, they're like, I want a Solidity dev, with 5 years experience. I'm like, who? Like, good luck.
So do I.
Yeah. And like, also it's not necessarily always about like the length that you've been a Solidity dev, more so the projects and the quality of projects that you've worked on. But I think lawyers are going to see the same issue. I think analysts are going to see the same issue. It's like these employers have to lower that like barrier of three years in the crypto space as like a senior counsel. Like, the only company you've probably worked for is like blockchain.com. Like, who have you worked for? So there's friction, but it'll eventually even itself out.
How do you think we get there? Is it just we need price to go back up so more people get interested in Web3 and they come back into the space? or is it like what do you recommend employers do that are hiring? I mean, there's so many hiring. Do they, like you said, lower their standards and just go with the interns and the younger kids and kind of mold them themselves and teach them themselves? Or do they, there's a dog, or do they try to like, I don't know, educate their industry? So let's say they're trying to hire lawyers. You go and educate a bunch of lawyers about Web3 and hopefully you pull some over. Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I spoke to the guys over at Unstoppable Domains a few weeks ago. Wonderful team, hiring like crazy. And they have a really cool program where they actually almost prefer to look for Web2 job seekers. And they have an educational program. I'm totally shilling them, but they have a great educational program where they put like that new job seeker almost through like a Web3 boot camp before they can start their job. And I think that's kind of the way of hiring, especially if you're a large company and you're hiring at scale. Like some of these companies, like Polygon, for instance, has like 80 plus openings. That's insane to be able, and then think about that, let's say 100 to 300 candidates per job. Employers are going to have to open up that, like, I'm only hiring a Web3 person. Like, they have to be willing to take a chance on some of these individuals who are coming over from the Web2 space, have applicable, let's say, product management skills in Web2, have worked for great companies, but want to make that career transition. That's where the friction needs to like die down. And maybe build like internal programs like Unstoppable that help educate. Because oftentimes your Web2 skills are applicable. It's just the context of what the company you're working for is different.
What's the pay like in Web3 versus Web2? Is it more? And I got to assume it's more if they want to get these people over, but I don't know. What do you find?
I don't know. Lacey's smile is telling a story here.
Depends. I talk about pay all the time. And we have a pay scale in our Discord because, like, I don't know. Like, you could probably ask for a ton of capital, or ask for like a nice share of tokens. You can really negotiate your package in the Web3 space. I think devs have a ton of leverage. If you're an employer listening to this, don't hate me. I'm so sorry. But devs have leverage. And I've seen, devs start off, at that like 120, 150 range, just as like a starting.
Wow.
And that's steep for a startup. Not all startups can afford that unless they've raised like a nice, round from, who knows, some top tier fund. but it can range. And then on the opposite end, I see Web3 companies taking advantage of employees all the time. I have people that will DM me and say like, hey, Lacey, do you think like $25 a day as a community mod is okay? I'm like, what? No. The amount of people, like, no, flip them off and like go find another job. Like yeah, like not cool. I mean, granted, I'm dealing with people around the world, so but their like minimum salary might be significantly different, but it's still not okay. Like if you're a Web3 company and you've raised funds, you should be paying market salary, like US market salary. You shouldn't be paying somebody $25 a day working 7 days a week. So it ranges. It definitely ranges.
You talked about you're working with people from all over the world. One of the beautiful things about Web3 is that it's global and it's open, and especially if you're paying in crypto, there's nothing stopping you from hiring anyone you want around the world, right? In the Web2 world, using the old payment rails, like you wouldn't be able to hire someone and use like, I don't know, Upwork or whatever that's in Iran or that's in certain countries, right? For example, because of sanctions and that. But in Web3, it's just fully open. So do you see just it's fully global in your Discord and what you're seeing, or is there certain countries that are more involved, or what's that dynamic like?
Fully global. And I'd say 90% of the jobs in our Discord are remote. Unfortunately, like there definitely still is bias towards hiring across different countries, depending what country that Web3 company is in. So I encourage individuals, if the job is remote, you know, in your resume, instead of putting I'm in Brazil, put that you can work in X time zones. You're comfortable doing that, because if the job is truly remote, that hiring manager should only be concerned with the fact that you can work in that time zone, communication skills are there, yada, yada, yada. But everyone's remote, and it's like a beautiful thing about Web3, because that means you can have access to talent that you wouldn't have normally had. And you get, and that unlocks all of these great things, which might help, most likely will help accelerate your startup.
Let's chat about the talent side. So we've talked about the employer side. What are the main challenges you see the talent facing in terms of getting a job in Web3? You know, you said you get 50 plus Discord DMs a day. What are the questions? What are the common threads that you're seeing?
Number one question is probably, how do I make my resume applicable to the Web3 space? There's definitely things you can do to Web3ify your resume.
Turn it into a wallet. Is that the answer?
There you go. Boom, done. Yeah. Or like even making a portfolio. I think online portfolios are great. Hiring managers don't want to have to download PDF resumes anymore because it's super sketch. I don't download PDFs anymore because I don't want somebody hacking into my computer. Sounds paranoid, but could happen in the Web3 space or even Web2 space. And I don't know who I'm communicating with on the other end, so I got to be careful. Other questions, compensation is a big one that comes up. Interview questions. Interview questions are a little bit different in the Web3 space, obviously, because of the context of what you're working on. So sometimes people will chat me asking for like interview prep help, like, hey, can you jump on for 10 minutes on voice and, you know, kind of run through a mock interview with me, which I'm more than happy to always do. Trying to think what else. Those are like the common questions that I get.
Give us I'm curious now, what is the typical Web3 interview? What are the different questions? And let's help out the listeners that are looking for some interview prep right now.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know what Web3 is before you go on a Web3 interview.
Yes.
You should probably know what blockchain is, and you probably should know what like NFTs and crypto, are, and like how it interacts at just a very basic level. Like if you can talk to your mom about it or your grandma about it, like that's usually like enough. I think it's also important to go into interviews like having an opinion on your favorite projects that are in this space, why they're your favorite projects. That could be NFT projects, blockchains, just general Web3 projects, DeFi projects. It's good to kind of like have a favorite. Like if you're going into interview at a shoe store, you should probably know like what your favorite shoe is. I don't know. That's a stupid analogy, but you get what I'm saying. And then beyond that, it depends on the type of job that you're interviewing for. So I've written a few threads on interview questions based on roles. So like community mod interview questions, kind of like, how do you run a Discord? What bot should you be doing? How do you secure the safety of that Discord? How do you interact with with new users? How do you get them back or get them coming back to re-engage? Those are typical interview questions. I wrote a thread on product management a month or so ago, and questions in that were like, what tools do you use in Web3 as a product manager? What project do you believe launched and failed, and why in the Web3 space? Little things like that, are definitely common questions you'll get.
Yeah. So have an opinion, right? I'm watching Super Pumped right now, the show that's a story of Uber, and one of the things that comes out in that show is that they asked everybody in the interview, "Are you an asshole?" Which says a lot about the culture of Uber. But it made me wonder if, like, does everybody in Web3 ask, "Are we all going to make it?" Like, what's the transferable question for that?
Should we pull that?
I like it.
What about somebody who, because we get this a lot, I find. So the more junior levels, right? Like I think the senior levels probably have lots of experience interviewing. They probably have got that down packed. But I think we see this wave of young talent, and particularly a wave of talent, of global talent, where their education system and their background might not be as strong, that they're coming with a real skill set to offer, which I think is why we're seeing so many people interested in being community moderators, because it is something that you can pick up rather quickly and, and offer that skill. But the one thing that I always see is people being like, hey, how do I network? How do I meet more people in Web3, right? They don't have any connection. And I think a lot of people are joining Discords, but they get lost in Discords and they struggle, and Discord can just be a mess. So I'm just curious if you have any advice around how to network and how to actually build real relationships in Web3, not just join a million Discords.
Yeah, I can totally empathize with that, because that was me in the beginning. I was like, I don't know how to use Discord. Is it okay to like DM the mod? Like, is the mod the person that I need to talk to? I always recommend people like hopping in on Twitter Spaces. I think that's a great way to meet people, raise your hand, have an opportunity to go up on stage, introduce yourself, talk to the people that are on the stages. Other great ways to network: hackathons. A lot of people don't know that in a majority of the hackathons, there's codeless opportunities like writing, building go-to-market strategies. A lot of people think hackathons are just for devs, and they're not. In fact, there's a codeless hackathon, specifically no code, that happens, I think, once a quarter or so. And that's a great way to network, meet other people that are jumping into the space and trying to build skills, and like maybe even earning some crypto at the end. Sliding into people's DMs on Twitter, again, like what we were talking about earlier. People are super friendly. I always say yes whenever somebody wants to, hop on a quick Discord chat. I'm like, yeah, let's chat. What can I tell you? Unfortunately, not everybody's like that, but like if you shoot 100 shots, like at least 10% are going to get back to you and say, yeah, why not? And then I think also keeping up those relationships super important. Kind of like, this may sound stupid, but like kind of like on LinkedIn, where you congratulate people for getting new jobs, like interact with people's, Twitter posts. Like I do all the time. That's how I maintain my relationships, because I don't talk to those people every day, but like, for instance, you guys, I'll follow you on Twitter, and like, you'll see me, write something on, a post that you've written, over the next few weeks, just to like remind you I'm here, and, I want to keep the relationship. That's all good things to do. And that's good ways to network. And you never know, somebody might have a job for you, or might want to build a hackathon team, or that might just be a relationship that's good to just have another friend. So
we just hired someone that is, I think he's 22 or whatever. 22. He's young, just got out of school. He's not even graduated school. He's like going through it right now to graduate. And we spoke to him months ago when we put out a job posting, but he followed us on Twitter and he's just engaged with us for the last few months. And we were like, wow, this guy's like super out there. And he's very wise. Like he had some great tweets that he would tag us in and like include us in on conversations. And so like, he just stayed top of mind. And so when we were ready to hire again for the next role, he was like, we didn't even have to apply again. We reached out to him because he was just always there. And so it works, right? Like we see it right away. So that's really cool. I have one other question. I know we're getting close to time where we need to wrap up, but since we're talking workforce, we haven't really touched this yet. So I'm interested to see if you have any ideas about this, but DAOs. To me, DAOs is something that's going to completely revolutionize the workforce in a way where you're not even applying anymore. You're just contributing. And then all of a sudden now you have a role. Have you put much thought into DAOs? Have you put any, like, I don't know if you've been a part of any DAOs, but how do you see that changing workforce, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm a DAO contributor. I would be in 20 DAOs if I could, but not enough time in the day. And it's also important, like, I think people get so excited about wanting to be a part of a ton of DAOs, but you have to think about the quality of your contribution at the end of the day. And like, there's no way that you're going to contribute meaningfully and get paid meaningfully to 20 different DAOs. It's just not physically possible. DAOs are great. I know the guys over at Cleoverse, super nice guys. They're kind of building that DAO work platform where, I might be butchering this, so don't shoot me if you guys are listening, but they like collect a ton of DAOs, and the DAOs put out the contribution opportunities. And if you're in the Cleoverse ecosystem, you can like interact or apply to those contribution opportunities. I don't know. I think I got it right. But they're kind of building like that future of work in the DAO space, which is super exciting. What's interesting to me, like in our Discord, I don't see a ton of like specific contribution opportunities come towards us, but I see the larger companies that have DAOs looking for like governors. And it's like a very specific thing. I'm trying to think who I post, like Polygon, I think is hiring for like a governor or a treasury manager. Like there's like senior positions that I see more like happening in the hiring full-time space. But DAOs are great. I think it's an incredible way to create job opportunities that weren't there before, and great ways to achieve like really bizarre missions, like buying an NBA team, or like, you know, like I was creeping on like the Blockbuster DAO, like all of that. So cool. I want to buy Blockbuster. I want to be a part of that.
Wait, is there a DAO that's buying the last remaining Blockbuster video store? I haven't heard about this.
Yeah, I haven't kept up with them because that Discord was nuts, like nuts. And they had to put together like a proposal to, I think it's like, who owns them, like Comcast or AT&T or some major corporate company.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah,
they wanted to buy. I'm butchering this, but buy Blockbuster and turn it into like a decentralized streaming service.
Of course.
Unreal.
I'm on it. I'm behind that. Sure, take my money. So
that would be one of the best comeback stories of all time.
It really would be. I mean, other great comeback stories like Radio Shack making a great comeback. LimeWire is making a comeback.
Yeah,
LimeWire. Yeah.
I could see a future with going back to your wallet, because I got more ideas for you for your company. But I could see a future where a DAO needs, I don't know, let's just say they need an image created by a graphic designer, and they just put out a proposal, and someone just connects their wallet, proves that they have X credential where they've passed some course by Canva or whatever. So proves that they have it. They automatically get awarded that role or that project. And then it's like, once they finish and complete the project, they hand it in, and so long as it's good, then boom, they click approve and the money goes right to the wallet immediately. And it's like, there was no hiring process at all. It was just kind of like, you put out a proposal, you connect in, and it just works, and then they get paid and they're done, and you move on to the next thing. That's how I can see freelancing working.
If you build that platform, we'll come.
Okay. I'll get started today.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions, Kai, or can we move to the speed round questions to wrap before we wrap up here?
Let's wrap it up.
Anything else you wanted to touch on, Lacey?
No, that was a lot. I think we touched on a lot.
Well, first, tell us where we can find you, because it sounds like you showed a bunch of Twitter threads that you do. And so I'm interested to go check them out. I'm sure many of the listeners are. Where can we find you on the interwebs, specifically on Twitter?
So Twitter, we're at Metaintro. Discord link is in the bio. And I try to pin the good tweets, the good threads. So if you scroll through the top, you'll see the tweets the threads that I was talking about.
Cool. And we'll try to collect some of those threads and throw them in the show notes along with some of the other links that you mentioned. Okay. We like to just finish up with a fun little lightning round, just hit you with some quick questions. Let's start out with favorite person to follow on Twitter.
Probably Alexis Ohanian. It's probably my favorite.
Cool. Cool.
If you meet him, tell him I say hi.
If you meet him, tell him we say hi. Former founder of Reddit and now running, what's the VC that he's running now? 776 or something like that it's called?
Yeah. And he's investing in all of these Web3 startups.
Yeah.
So.
Investor in Moonbirds. They just put in, I think, 10 million into Moonbirds.
Yep.
Showing my new favorite NFT project. Yeah, shill, total shill. Totally showing my bag. Best thing you've purchased for under $100 does not have to be Web3.
I purchased a candy bar the other day. That's like the first thing that came to mind.
What kind of candy bar?
Like a Hershey's chocolate cookies and cream.
Nice.
I know. Does that
Delicious.
count?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I don't know if is that really the best thing you purchased?
I really like my chocolate. So yeah, probably.
Sounds great. Other than your Discord, favorite community online?
Favorite community. Either the DAO that I'm in, which is an all women led DAO called Blue DAO, or Near. Near has some really good stuff in it. Like I'm not just saying that just because like we're backed by them, but they have a really active Discord and developer information, no code information, super helpful if you're building on Near. So I probably jump into that Discord a lot. Yeah, quite a bit during the week.
Cool. We'll throw both those in the show notes. Okay, last question. Upcoming project you're most excited about. Could be a DAO, could be an NFT, could be a protocol. No limit to what type of project it can be.
Project, because I just use them. Request Finance is probably my favorite right now. Incredible platform to pay, send invoices, but they're in their like MVP baby stage still. And what I was able to do without paying any fees was, I would prefer that over QuickBooks any day. So I'm definitely rooting for them right now and keeping an eye on what they're doing. Is that lame? Is that a lame answer?
That's a great one.
No, it's actually an awesome answer. I'm going to go look at them immediately after this show because I manage our finances. So I'm now interested. Okay. Amazing. Lacey, this has been a blast. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun to talk Web3 jobs and startup life. So my two favorite things.
Lacey, thank you. And when you get Metaintro launched, we will have you back on to talk about what that process was like and how that's going, et cetera. So looking forward to part 2 in the future.
Sweet. Me too.
And we'll definitely do the startup panel as well. And I'm pumped up about that one. We'll get that one in the calendar for the next couple months. Okay, have a great afternoon. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you for listening to Web3 Academy. We hope this helps you along your Web3 journey. And if it does, please share this episode and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. By the way, if you have yet to join the Discord community, you are missing out. This is where all the magic happens. This is where we learn, where we ask questions, where we network. You want to be in there. The link to join is in the description below. And finally, a quick disclaimer. Nothing in this podcast was financial advice. Crypto and Web3 can be risky. You can literally lose it all. In fact, if you invest on account of what we say, you probably will lose it all. So don't do that. In all honesty, the point of this podcast is to remove the noise of markets and price and focus on utility and implementation anyway. So you should not take any of this as financial advice. Thank you, friends, and see you in the next one.